like toys, different things for the kids to do. And off in the waiting room, we have specific hallways, so if you're an adult, you'll go straight into the general. And because our pediatric unit is right off the side of the waiting room, then the kids can just go straight into the pediatric rooms instead of walking through all the doors.
All right, so our general unit, that's this big blue part right here, it's located, that's the closest to the waiting room. So there's a total of 40 rooms all around in there. That's our biggest section. Those rooms are more for the people who are not necessarily trauma, like who aren't necessarily emergent. That's more for the non-urgent and urgent types. So that's that's the general reasons why you would go in. That mostly involves quick care, but there are some overnight rooms in there, and that's where our ICU is also held.
Yeah, so it goes less emergent to more emergent. So you have sniffles and coughs, all this down here, and then your more overnight rooms go up. And so this would be right there. And then our ICU rooms would be so that we don't have to transport trauma patients into the hospital. They have an overflow ICU room for the most traumatic patients.
And then right here is our nurse bay. And then from this is where all the elevators are located. The elevators lead up to where the helipad.
Yes. So the helipad the elevator is in the central part of the hospital. You can get anywhere at the same time.
Okay, so our overflow rooms, they're located on the side of the general area, and there's just 20 extra beds. They're just like curtains, and they're not actual like rooms. And it's just for patients who they're not super urgent, and don't need as much treatment as somebody who's emergent.
Yeah, we would just move patients down. So as you get less traumatic, you go down. And if we need more traumatic rooms, then we move people into the overflow rooms. So we never know what that's.
So our second unit is this dark green here. It's going to be a calming environment for people who are having a mental break or like most of the groups have said, the young people who just come in or homeless people that just want to stay there for a night. And it's rectangular for easy view, so if someone decides they want to just go murder everyone, it's a little harder.
Yeah. And then there's security cameras facing each door so that we can watch. And in each room there's only a bed, no equipment, because a lot of patients come in that are suicidal. And if you have different equipment in there, they could kill themselves with it. So just a bed and cameras. And a specific security guard so that no psychiatric patients can just run through the hospital.
Our pediatrics section is a little unique in the sense that it's actually its own kind of self-sufficient emergency room for kids. It has its own CT and X-ray and MRI rooms. I don't know if you can tell from right here, we can pick it up a little bit. You guys may see that we have some stickers and such along the walls. We're trying to produce the most comforting environment for kids as possible. And we also have it as far away from the psych ward as possible, so not to alarm anybody. So yeah, it's kind of its own little self-sufficient area within our ER.
We also have a diagnostic specifically for the pediatrics, so like a CT that's smaller so that the kids don't get as scared. They go to the
So it looks like there's something in there, like a spaceship.
Right after pediatrics is a diagnosis and screening, so we have our MRI, our CT, our X-ray rooms, and then it's just in a good area. Anyone in general can go in, pediatrics can go straight in from their unit, so you're not crossing the whole ER just to get to testing. And then psychiatric usually don't need MRIs, but if they do, they have a farther walk. But most people who will need them in the general area can just go straight in. Our ambulance bay.
So we have 5 ambulances. We have the smaller CT scans that are more portable for the ambulances. That way, if someone's having a stroke or anything like that, and they get picked up by the ambulance, they can get that diagnosed there, and that way it's easier for us to treat them. In the entrance, we will have 2 TVs on both sides, so they can, as the ambulances come in, they can just look over and see what route to take them to.
So our our trauma rooms are located right off the ambulance bay. There's 4 of them. There's 2 sections, each of them are split into 2 rooms. There's one specialized room for pediatrics, so that we have the special equipment for the little kids, so that they, they have this small little. So, they also have like specific room temperatures for them, and then they have like the blood pressure and all their equipment in each room that we need.
So each room will be self-sufficient. It'll have its own like blood bank, blood area, so they don't have to run out and get anything. Each room is connected on the side, so if they do have a pediatric patient on this side, this one's already full. Like all the equipment is still accessible. And then just because this room is pediatric specific doesn't mean an adult can't go into it.
Our helipad, here, that wasn't, yeah, kind of skipped over this part. So the helipad, we have 3 helicarriers. This is our elevator chute right here. So it's placed on the roof in the center of the building for easy access. The elevators are kind of located circling the nursing station as to provide the quickest access. It's kind of central. So we have stabilizing rooms like on that helipad level themselves, so we don't have to rush them down because time every second counts when you're in the process of dying. So we will do our best to stabilize them up there, and then when they're a little more stable, then we can bring them down and take them to their appropriate location.
So we have biohazard showers, so like, for example, like in a medical school or anything like that. They're located by the ambulance bay, and we're on the side, that way we can keep the radiation and stuff like that from getting and spreading to the entire hospital, that they still are able to wash themselves and make sure they're not being essential.
We have a specific OR for the emergency room, so we don't have to transport them to the hospital if they need emergency surgery. And we also have a specific blood bank for that OR too, so that you don't have to waste time running to the hospital.
We also have viewing rooms for patients that pass, whether they pass in the general or pediatric or trauma. They're located over here. We'll move the patient and their bed into that room so that families can say their goodbyes and just kind of hang out with their family member before they have to go. And we also, the stabilizing rooms, like Daniel said, up on the helipad, so that if a patient is seizing coming off of the helicopter, we don't have to ride all the way down in the elevator while they're seizing. We can just stabilize them upstairs and then bring them to the room. Our innovations.
So one of the most important things that we came up with were more like portable CT machines and such. Just so we're trying to make it as efficient as possible. So we don't have to drag people from here to here and then back there and then over here. What we're trying to do is provide mobile equipment. So CT machines and we have our own little CT machines and ambulances and such. So it's for the sake of portability.
We also had the innovation of vital chairs and vital beds. And so in the waiting room and also in some of the rooms would have self-sufficient beds that you'll be connected to a blood pressure cuff, a pulse, or temperature, and all that will be taken. And then that information off of the bed and the chair can go straight to the nursing station, whichever room you're in, so that if someone's blood pressure spikes really, really high, it alerts them on the screen. So they don't have to walk around to each bed and make sure everyone's okay. It's just all in one system. And so doctors and nurses will all have access to that. And then even in the waiting room, because they'll be sitting in the chair with their vitals, the triage nurse will be able to look directly at the screen and triage people off of whether someone's temperature goes up or drops really low, and all the information will be really taken care of.
Our third innovation is something, app-like thing that you can check in easier. So if it's a really busy night, you don't have to stand in line, wait for the nurse to say, oh, it's your turn. You can just go on your mobile device, do that, and check in very quickly. It'll go to the triage nursing station. And if you don't have a mobile device or anything like that, you can do it the old-fashioned way as well.
So you'll still wait in line on your device, and then once you get to the counter, you just give them, it'll give you a check-in number, and then you give them your check-in number, and then they'll already have your name, chief complaint, and then all of this stuff. You know, people could lie and say, well, I'm having a stroke, just to get in faster. And then so the check-in desk will be like, okay, well, you're obviously not having a stroke. So it'll like not make that confusion, but it'll be a lot faster. People can put in their main information before they even get to the desk.
Okay, so we chose patient number 3, David Kula. He is an 11-month-old baby. He overdosed on aspirin, and he has like shallow breathing, good pulse, and he is drooling a lot.
So you diagnosed him with a baby overdose.
When he came in through the entrance with his parents, and they took him to the check-in, and then they took him straight to the pediatric area, and they stabilized him, and they did a physical exam on all that, and then they did lab tests, and then they pumped his stomach to get the medication, and then once he was stabilized, he was moved into the pediatric care room for overnight observation.
Our next patient is Rita Gosh, a 25-year-old female. She was hit by a car, and so she came in an ambulance. She would come in on this side, other than the baby that came in the private vehicle. So she would come straight into the trauma room. She talked to me about loss of leg movement. She was lucid. She didn't have much movement at the hips, and her pelvis was very tender. So once she got into the trauma room, and she was more stabilized, then she would move into one of our intensive care rooms, which is straight off of the trauma unit. And once in the ICU rooms, or the emergency room, she would go into here to have MRIs and CT scans. And then also, because of just being in such a bad accident, we would do different tests on her to see if there's any like chemical damage, or if she has a brain bleed or anything like that, or if any other imbalances in her body. And then, so that would go through the lab. And then in the hospital, we have the tubing system. So we can send her test results straight to the lab, and they can send it straight back to us. So we don't have to run her through here and make her wait in the waiting room or anything like that. It would come straight into her room so that we could diagnose her. Ready to talk about that? Sorry. Okay. Questions?
All right, thank you. Questions for this group? None?
Is there only one nurse's station?
In the general area, yeah, but there's multiple nurses there. And then nursing station for here, and we have a nursing station in
How do you keep people from, so the elevator in the middle of the nursing station, that's also throwing me off. So people have to go through metal detectors in the waiting room, but what stops people from going from the upper levels of the hospital and coming straight down into the middle of the emergency room with whatever they want to bring with them, because they bypassed all the...
Well, the elevator comes straight off of the helipad, so there's no other access unless you come in on a helicopter. So if people land their helicopters and come in, then like that's a different problem. But like it's a one floor with
Just the helipad elevators.
Yeah.
I thought that was like all the elevators. And you're like, everyone, hello party in the
no, the
nursing
elevator
station.
is
Gotcha.
only for
Thank
the
you.
helicopter.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
Okay, so you said with the chair, so the chair is in the pediatrics, like the vital chair, it's in the pediatrics as well, right?
Yes.
Yes. So what if the kid like doesn't want to sit down and they just want to play around and just goof off? Like how would you?
Well, in the pediatrics, we can always have them sit down and take their vitals, and if they are restless or like they don't want to sit there, we can take their vitals and then let them go play. So maybe we have 4 vital chairs and the rest are all normal, because the kids are going to want to get up. They're not going to want to sit there. So they can take it off, and we'll have extra nurses in that room so that they're helping the kids, because the parents, they probably don't know how to take vitals. So we'll just have extra staffing in there to help, and then once they are done, they can get up and go.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
bell rings at 10:23. Do you guys want to start? Today, and we need you to get it done. We're not doing it.
I mean, like, setup, I don't know how long. Okay, I mean, unless like, maybe just that.
Yeah, we can do like
It's a different poster. Yeah, like we can do like, okay. Just go grab.
All right, so this would be team 6. They're gonna start, and then they're gonna finish up on Monday.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, while we're doing that, while they're getting set up, what I would like you to do is on the back of your judging form for each group, I would like you to do a sticky note